Welcome to Football Geeks. Tonight, my guest is a lapsed Arsenal fan who, like so many football lovers, troubled by the monetisation and commercialism of the modern game, decided to tread a different path. It's a story he's detailed in his book, Turncoat, How I Stopped Supporting Arsenal and Found a New Team. A warm welcome, Matt Coughlan.
Hi, Phil. Nice to be here.
Oh, mate, it's good to have you. Thank you. Thank you for agreeing to be a guest on the show. So, Matt, let's dig straight into it. You begin the book by referring to fans who reset their footballing allegiances as turncoats, glory hunters, and tourists. But you went in the opposite direction, didn't you, mate? You went on the road less travelled, so to speak. So, can you tell us about the book Turncoat and what were your motivations for writing it, mate?
Yeah, I'd sort of been away from football for a while. I stopped watching Arsenal about 2012, something like that. The number of reasons which I go into in the book, but the sort of thing a lot of people were familiar with, like as you mentioned, monetisation, the way modern game's gone. I've become an old man moaning about it very quickly if I'm not careful. But yeah, stopped going, and then I sort of missed the game. I'd sort of gone away and done a few other things, had family and stuff like that. But I kind of wanted to get back into watching football, and I'd seen articles about Clapton where they'd got a bit of a band of ultras following them. Well, that sounds quite cool. I should probably check out a bit of non-league and go around a few different clubs. And then I just thought I'd start writing about it. I'd sort of done a few writing type things in the past, and I thought I'll give it a bit of a go. It's write what you know, as they say. So I know a little bit about football, and it's a classic sort of story. Someone who sort of was once interested in something goes away and comes back. So yeah, hopefully it's some sort of reflections of what I'd like to think the game should be.
Brilliant, mate. I mean, it's a story that resonates with me because I said this when I emailed you in the past. It's so kind of like it's like a similar story to mine because I was a Birmingham City fan. Still am too. You never lose it, do you? Really, it's always there. But in about 2012, again, same sort of time scale, they were taken over by an awful owner, and you know, I don't ascribe to this point of view. Like people say, oh, you love one club in your lifetime, but in any other relationship in your life, that wouldn't work, would it? I mean, if you had a partner who was constantly disappointing you and letting you down, you're not going to stick around forever, are you?
Yeah, you're not usually held to too many decisions you make at about 8 years old either, which
that's right.
So, yeah, I know a few people would go the other way, and yeah, I mentioned sort of glory hunters at the very sort of start. Yeah, there'd be people who change teams to like go for a better team, but I think it's acceptable to go for one who's a lot worse. I've known a few people who've sort of gone for sort of non-league, and I don't think you're alone. A lot of people I've spoken to after the book came out saying, yeah, I don't go to it as much as I used to. More interested in non-league, and it feels like non-league's definitely, from my point of view, seems a lot popular these days.
Yeah, I mean, it is cool. I mean, just for the kind of diversity of grounds, really. You know, you go to different games. I've sort of like watched Ulf Church and the great ground Stourbridge. Oh, their stadium's incredible. It's like you're walking into a kind of park. There's like these double pillars when you walk in, and then there's the cricket ground which is on the side. So it's that element as well, isn't it? There's the real excitement when you go to a new ground rather than these huge kind of cyclodromes they have for football nowadays.
And you can just rock up and do it. It doesn't cost much to get in. You can decide to go along with a few mates. It's not going to cost a fortune. There's a lot to love about it.
Yeah, it's real fun. But you started as a kind of dyed red and white gunner for many years. Can you talk us through the events that moulded your particular love of the game?
Yeah, so if we go back really to the start, I mean, I've moved back up north since writing the book, and I was walking past my old primary school the other week, and I did realise it's not the first time I've become a turncoat because I was up sort of near Leeds way, and in the playground it was Leeds United fans versus Bradford City fans, and it was a bit of an unbalanced game because there was about 30 on the Leeds side and 3 on Bradford. So I would always say I was a Leeds fan just to get on the winning side. So but luckily we moved moved away before that cemented into anything else. I'm not sure I'd fancy being a Leeds fan. Moved down south. All my mates are Arsenal fans, and it kind of it snowballs from there really into sort of like being a mascot, sort of finding your way to like five-a-side tournaments when you play on the pitch, traveling abroad with them when you could get tickets. And it really sort of loved going. There was a sort of good group that you sort of got to know at the old ground, but then it all starts moving away from that, where you sort of move grounds, you sort of get to know a few other people. But yeah, the concrete bowls it's not the same as Highbury. And the game just sort of moved away from the one you sort of grew up loving, really.
Yeah, and of course, always been a deep love between Leeds fans and Arsenal fans, hasn't there? Throughout. It's true what you say. You do sort of like get embroiled in the community of non-league football. That's exactly what I found. It was fantastic. So you were a supporter of a very successful team. So when did your love of commercial football start to fade? When did you start losing the love?
Yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, I think some of it. There's probably like the kickoff times being all over the place. So if you support one team, you kind of got to follow it whenever they're playing, and they'll play their games all over the shop. Whereas at least with non-league, if you happen to be free, you can go along to a game and that. So there's that. The cost of it as well. It worked out almost by the end. I was paying £1,000 a year to watch Arsenal, which I dread to think what it would be now. But yeah, I worked out in the course of writing this book, I probably spent half of that, and I think I bought a season ticket and then treated the family to a beach hut at Lewis. So you could have these sort of mad splurges that's still that half the price of a season ticket, and you get to all these weird and wonderful grounds. So yeah, I don't regret that at all. I'd have had to have spent about 10 grand or more to have had a ticket for the one decent game that I probably regretted not being there for when they beat Bournemouth last season. It looked like it was going to win the league, but yeah, I don't regret my decision on that. And yeah, it's just I'm really glad that I've discovered some of these sort of teams and the stories and the people that sort of associate with them, really.
Yeah, you refer to the old dripping pan, which is, for those who are uninitiated, Lewis FC's ground, which I went to a few years ago. It's absolutely fantastic. There's no other ground like it, is there? Would you mind explaining what it looks like to?
It's in a natural bowl, and then so you've kind of got like a grass bank on one side, terrace at one end, sort of seating down one side, and a sort of real mix of stands behind the goal, and there's really nice bar, decent beer in it, and then a collection of 4 beach huts that you can hire out as sort of executive boxes, but not at sort of Premier League prices. So yeah, got all the family in one of those for one of the games I went to. And yeah, we've tried to go back again, but that got snowed off. So yeah, it's a favourite little spot to go back to, that one.
Yeah, and you said that your daughter, you were trying to entice her to an Arsenal ladies team, and she asked, "Does Arsenal have beach huts?"
Yeah, she'll only go to a game if there's beach huts. I've tried all sorts. I mean, I might be able to tempt her with a corporate box, but that might be a bit expensive. So yeah, I've made a rod for my own back there. She's not interested unless there's that sort of hospitality involved.
Yeah, just now some like wood planks around the inside of the corporate box. Yeah. She'll be well away then, right?
Yeah, I'll sneak a shed in and build it week by week, maybe at the local club.
So now you find yourself embroiled in the milieu of non-league football. There always been an attachment, even when you were following professional football, to the non-league game?
Not so much. I mean, my mum would sort of try and say, "Why don't you go to Burnham Ramblers instead of Arsenal?" She had an eye, I think, a cheaper, easier weekend. But it's like, you won't notice the difference in quality. And it's like, I'm pretty sure I will. And I think I did notice at the time. But actually, what you like when you get older changes. And I mean, I did get along to Chelmsford City every so often. I think what I liked about them was we could just get a group of mates there, have a few drinks, watch. Well, we didn't probably watch an awful lot of football because we ended up staying in the bar for large portions of it, which is probably the best place to be at Chelmsford because it's a notoriously cold ground. It's not known as the Gulag for nothing. So yeah, we had some fun sort of going to the other grounds with mates, and yeah, the odd bit here and there, but now nothing particularly regular like I do now.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the Gulag in the book, and it's very similar to. I go and watch Solihull Moors regularly now. I go to virtually every home game, and their ground. It's even if it's a bright sunny day because it's right by Birmingham Airport. it's always absolutely freezing cold. But you started watching sides, and are there any teams that there's a particular attachment to? I mean, you've solicited many non-league clubs along the way, haven't you? With obviously you've mentioned Chelmsford already, but there was also #United, wasn't there? Which
Yeah,
yeah,
that's the one that surprises everyone, and it kind of surprised me a bit because I thought when you're sort of looking at different clubs to make up a book, you think I'll go along to some historic ones, find out a bit about them. You'll go along to some places that got nice grounds, and then # sort of come up, and you think this is a really sort of interesting model for a club. I'll go along. I'll probably write about it and say, "Oh, it's dreadful. It's not proper football. It's all YouTubers and stuff like that." But actually, they're a really friendly club. They're trying to do a lot of the right things. I kind of got drawn into their story a bit. I ended up being a correspondent for a website briefly for them. I wasn't the best correspondent, I have to admit. I didn't. Not going to every game is a bit of a downside, I think. So yeah. So I really like their story, and I'm not going to give away the ending with this book. It is a bit of a sort of whodunit or who wins it kind of situation. But yeah, they retain a certain amount of fondness, and I can carry on watching them because all the sort of videos they put out.
Yeah, well, I won't give away who actually sort of stole your affections in the end. But for me, it was Solihull Moors. But you get to a point where you start to care, don't you? You actually start to care. It's like new love, but. And I found that I'd started to care because if you look into Solihull Moors history, they were actually established as Solihull Moors in 2007. So it's 16 years, and one of the famous the songs that away fans sing is Plastics, because we've only been around for 16 years. But that's not true because when I was 13, when I first started going to watch non-league football, they were two clubs with a really fierce rivalry. There was Moor Green and Solihull Borough, and they absolutely hated each other. I'm not joking. So it was a really sticky, and there were some real derbies in the day that I attended where it proper kicked off between fans. It was, you do get that passionate at low level, and whenever people say, "Oh, you're a plastic club, you're only 16 years old," I have to pull them up on it and go, No, Moor Green were around in they were formed in the 30s, and Solihull Borough in the 50s. So we haven't come from nowhere. We've come from somewhere, and that's when you realise, hang on, I'm making an argument for a non-league club. I must be invested in some small way.
Yeah, but there's some great stories out there. I mean, you find this with I think league fans don't realise how lucky they are. I mean, there's a few teams that have obviously had some difficulties, but if you look through non-league, the teams that have sort of fallen apart, merged together with others, been reformed. If you're going to have a healthy pyramid, you need that sort of mix, and there's some really great sort of stories out there. Ilford was a particularly notable one. Trying to get to the bottom of what happened there. There was all sorts of mergers with Walthamstow and Leytonstone, and then demergers, and other teams got thrown into the mix. I think I glossed over that in the book because I could never quite understand what it was. Hinted at a few sort of mergers, demergers, and all this sort of stuff going on. And it is what's fascinating about it when you start getting into the history of some of these clubs. And Ilford was a fairly famous name, and I was there on a night when about 12 people were watching it. So it's amazing how the fortunes ebb and flow of these clubs.
Yeah, I mean they were part of the old what was it called, the league that you got promoted to if you won it 4 years on the bounce, but you have to get elected to the league. And Ilford were always quite high flying in that league prior to the football conference, wasn't it? But you've been around. You're mainly kind of Essex and the kind of outer counties of London, haven't you? So Saffron Walden was one, and their ground, Caton's Lane, that looks like an absolute fantastic venue to go and watch football, mate.
Yeah, that's probably the best one in Essex to go. That's my recommendation if you go around Essex. Caton's Lane's lovely, a proper sort of cowshed stand one end, sloping pitch, and then stand behind the manager, and you get a sort of full experience of non-league proper football man sort of berating the team, the officials, and everything else, and it's enjoyable to watch that sort of experience.
Oh, fantastic. So to give everyone a flavour of this book, what stories did you enjoy most in retelling in Turncoat, the book, mate? Just give us a few that really kind of, you enjoyed.
Yeah, so I think a lot of it is. I like to get into a little bit of the history of each club, and then any sort of personal history with some of them, because obviously played football in those sort of areas. Like Malden Town, they never sort of came out anywhere, but it was a team I remember playing against, and then you suddenly realise actually you'd played against them at their old ground, and their new ground was 25 years old, and those trees weren't even there when you played. And it's surprising when you go back to these places. But yeah, and then it's just like watching the game and the little things you notice, the lovely little moments in non-league, like ball gets kicked out of play, a fan sort of throws it away from the on-rushing defender, and he offers to have him outside in the car park. I mean, we all found that hilarious. This guy seemed a little bit dubious because he looked like he could have been Vinnie Jones's harder brother, basically. This guy. So yeah, you get to see those lovely little moments, and yeah, sort of it's that mixture of sort of niggly sort of aggression on the pitch and the odd moment of skill, and like you got this contest going. So yeah, there's sort of lovely little sort of bits of that going on, really.
I remember there's a team who play in the Midland combination called Northfield Town. I used to watch them when I was younger, and I remember they had 3 balls for a game,
right?
And very much like some of the pictures illustrated in your book, there's the garden fence with semi-detached behind, and that's what takes up one end of the ground, and these balls flew over. They'd run out of balls eventually, and the goalkeeper had to stand on a beer crate and peer over the fence to see if one of the neighbours was out, so he could retrieve the ball, which took about 10 minutes. So that went on to what's now modern overtime. But yeah, they did manage to get the ball eventually, and had to be a bit less kind of profligate with their shooting.
Well, yeah.
Later on in the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was with one mate and he counted about 6 balls had gone out of the ground in the first half at one go. So yeah, it was a mixed bag of football.
Oh, that's crazy! That's crazy. So yeah, non-league football. So how has your outlook and philosophy on football changed since you've, I don't like to say downgraded, regraded?
Well, when you ask me about philosophy, I always feel I should sort of be like a sort of, it should come back to something like Renus Michaels or something like that, and it should be a beautiful game. It should be all sort of passing, changing, and tactical position. Like I grew up on George Graham sort of football, so I like a bit of dour defensiveness. I like to be a bit gritty and hard fought. I'm a pragmatist at heart in these sort of things. So I kind of like, it's like the football I grew up on when you're watching some of these teams, and actually some of them probably play a bit better than that 90s Arsenal team did. Like you see teams trying to play out from the back at step 6 these days. So I love sort of seeing that sort of like blood and thunder type stuff. Maybe a few more goals than the sort of George Graham Arsenal team might give up. But yeah, I'm very much in that sort of camp. In fact, like my 5-a-side group was talking about moving ground to a pitch that was like not going to give us all carpet burns, and there was proper floodlights. And then I found out there's going to be bigger goals, and there's a goalkeeper. It's like, well, I'm not having that. I'm going to concede more goals that way. I like to keep it tight, and sort of 1-0 wins the sort of ideal. So yeah, it's that kind of thing. And then throw in sort of gale force conditions, which you'd often get sort of hashtag when they're off on the river, sloping pitches, mud baths. I like to see a bit of a mix and match. I don't want to see a team tapping it around like Man City do and just kill the life out of the game. I want to see sort of a bit of a leveler, the classic FA Cup third round conditions. That's what I'm about. It's like that every day almost when you go to non-league.
Yeah. I was talking about this with someone about the kind of standard of play at lower levels, and how it kind of contrasts with the football. But it seems that everyone tries to play from the back now, doesn't it? And like the one thing that I miss from football, modern football in the higher tiers, is the variety.
Yeah.
Like, you'd have teams like Arsenal, like you say, who played a very kind of it was a attritional kind of football, really, but very efficient as well. Yeah, they'd need like 1 or 2 chances in a game, and because they had that kind of quartet at the back, that unbreakable quartet. As long as they were in the game, that you always fancied that they'd sneak it.
Yeah.
and you had teams like Wimbledon as well who were awful, but they played to their strengths, whereas you see these kind of level 6 teams trying to play out from the back without the personnel. That opens up another kind of box of surprises, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's definitely some surprises to there.
Yeah, I mean, the one disappointment I think of non-league football at the moment is that money's still involved, isn't it? Money is still a player within that level of football.
I always sort of wonder how much it is, because I remember that there were sort of murmurs about hashtag from other teams in the division when I was watching, saying, "Oh, they're pumping loads of money into it," and then you'd listen to hashtag and say, "Well, we're not paying much more or any more than other teams," and they lost players to like teams paying more money. It always feels like there's a team paying more money, and I think Ilford, when I was chatting to the sort of a former assistant manager, and you're sort of thinking, "Oh, it's quite a good location, shop window, you're in sort of London." It's like, yeah, but we don't pay a couple of £100 more than, and you're sort of thinking this sort of thing, it's pocket money. You think I'd like to pay for a famous name, but yeah, you speak to anyone in football, they'll say, yeah, money sort of swings it, and it always seems to make a difference. But it's just at that level, it could literally just, a player will go for £10 more just down the road. But you think, yeah, you just want to play at that sort of level, really. But yeah, it's the way the world is, isn't it?
It is weird. It's like top end non-league. I mean, we've had players who've like been on £2,000 a week. It's ridiculous, £2,000 a week, and also had their own kind of like apartment in a posh part of Solihull paid for. So money is still at play. So it's although I love it, I'm looking for another regrade myself, and maybe stepping down a few rungs.
Well, yeah, I think yeah, step 5 and step 6. I probably found myself at step 5 quite a lot in the book, and I found myself at step 5 and step 6 quite a lot these days, and that's where it feels like there's a lot less of an influence. But then it just means some businessmen can come in and think, I don't need to spend much here, and I'll get a few promotions and look good. So there's always murmurs about one team. There's always whoever's top seems to be spending the most money. That's always the way the rumours go.
I think that's always going to be the way, isn't it, mate? That's always going to be the way. So one question, probably the most pertinent question. We won't give away who you eventually kind of rested on football wise, but when you see them score, do you celebrate in the same way that you would celebrate an Arsenal goal?
No, I can't say I do, actually. I mean, I remember sort of FA Cup semi-final and being about 8 rows away from where I started out, all the contents of my pockets gone, that sort of wild celebration. You don't kind of get that, but you don't get the lows either. So you can kind of just watch a game, enjoy it. You might sort of cheer, sort of like Andy Murray winning a set point or something, which is not exactly wild and raucous. And then you sort of like, you can go home again at the end of it. So it's not something that will make or break your weekend, but there's something about it that does sort of appeal, like just being part of it and sort of falling into this community side of it. It's it's a nice place to be, but the same level of passion isn't necessarily there, but that's not necessarily a bad thing when you see what can happen.
I mean, either way, mate, it's a fantastic advocation of is that even a word? Well, I'm going to use it anyway. But it's of the non-league game. It's a fantastic read. I really enjoyed picking through it, mate, and it's also given me that desire to want to go to some of the grounds that you've been to. And there's some fabulous photos in there taken by your good self too. Some cracking stories. A real eye opener for the uninhibited. So, where's the book available, Matt? Where can you get your hands on Turncoat?
Yeah, so it's available. Pitch Publishing's got all the sort of different options. So I think it's like Waterstones, Smiths, a few other places that sort of sell it more independently, and of course Amazon as well. Is probably most people's go-to. So yeah, all the sort of usual places really.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I can thoroughly recommend it to anyone out there. It's going to enter into the pantheon of great non-league books. Hopefully it will sell in bucket loads, mate.
I hope so as well. And I think I've got a copy here, so this is the one to look out for.
Hey, there we go. I've got one, but I don't think I can. Does it show on here? Oh, it does. Look, there it is.
The slightly sinister figure does show up.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant, mate. Well, thanks for being a wonderful guest, Matt, and all the best with the book.
Cheers.
So we'll see you next time on Football Geeks for more football stories. Bye for now, guys.
Cheers.